Alright, this is John Cola with growingyourgreens.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, and I'm here outside Houston, Texas, in the Houston, Texas area, just maybe like a city or two outside greater Houston area. And the reason why I'm here today is to give you guys a farm tour of a very unique farm that you guys probably have never seen before unless you live in the area. And as you guys can see, you know, we got a field here of fruit trees, which is really cool, but this is not the farm that I'm going to give you guys a tour of today. The farm I'm going to give you guys a tour of today is actually in the greenhouses that you guys are seeing right behind me, right? Unlike many places in the country where, you know, if you're growing outside, or especially these fruit trees, right, they only produce one time a year. But inside the greenhouses over yonder, they produce food 365 days a year. Every week they're producing lots of food for the local area. And one of the reasons why I want to visit this farm in particular is because I know a lot of you guys may be looking for a job, right? And I want to encourage you guys not to go work for the man, not to go work for some big company, but to create your own jobs. And that's what two business student graduates have done here. Two local Houstonians have done here. They found a need and they simply filled it and created this farm in the process. Now they are here as one of their primary mission goals is to help educate others about the techniques and how they grow food in this greenhouse, but more importantly, to help share that with others in a more open source format to teach, instruct others, whether you're a homeowner, live in an apartment, grow on your patio or balcony, or want to have a huge system like they have here to feed people in your local area the method of food production that they're growing. And I took a whole tour of their facility, and now I'm going to go ahead and take you guys on a specific tour. But yeah, one of the things they do here is they do tours. So many of the videos that I make for you guys, like, I only get a special tour, then I get to share with you guys, but then you can't go to the place. But this place is cool. You could come here and go on a tour, similar tour that I got, and see this up close and personal if you want to. And that's really why I like this place. And there's a bunch of places doing a similar kind of thing here in the area. But I chose to come to Sustainable Harvesters today, not only because of the name, but because of their open source and policy of wanting to teach and create awareness about where food comes from, how it's grown, why you should care, and how to do it yourself, or how to start a business to do yourself that can be profitable, and create your own job instead of go work for somebody. Anyways, let's go head over to the greenhouses. Let's go inside and show you guys how they grow food here at Sustainable Harvesters. So now I'm outside the greenhouse here at Sustainable Harvesters, and they give tours here all the time, as well as classes, which is built into part of their farm. This is part of the reason why they're here, is to provide the education and let people come and see what they're doing and educate and empower people to grow them themselves if they want to. So before entering, it says, before entering greenhouse, please remove all mud and debris off your shoes. They want to keep a tight ship here, and they know that, by bringing in mud and other things, you may be bringing in diseases and stuff. So yeah, they want to minimize that. So we're going to go ahead and wipe off my shoes, and I don't really got any mud on my shoes, and we're going to go ahead and head inside. So now that I'm in the greenhouse, actually I'm not even yet in the greenhouse. I'm in like a little entryway before I even get into the greenhouse. I gotta go through this, one of them produce curtains that kind of keeps things outside and doesn't let them in the greenhouse. So I really like that they have this protocol. Some greenhouses and places I visited don't have this kind of protocol. So I remember I went to an indoor medicinal herb or cannabis grow, and they were pretty anal about even making me change my clothes. Here, luckily, I don't have to change my clothes or get in any kind of suits, but they do want you to sanitize and dry your shoes, wash your hands thoroughly with soap and hot water, and sign into the visitor's book. So they got a little sink here with soap and hot water that actually you could use by using your feet to press on it. So we're gonna go ahead and wash my hands here before we head in to the door, and I get to show you guys the aquaponics system. Massive aquaponics system they're using here to grow. So now I'm inside Sustainable Harvesters greenhouse, and this place is quite massive. This is probably one of the largest hydroponics setups that I've visited, commercial setups that I've visited. And they have like, I don't know, like maybe 7 different grow beds with lettuce, as well as other filter beds with even more food growing. And this is just all the food they're growing, or vegetables. And then over on this side, you guys can't see it right now, but I'll show you guys in a little bit. They have the fish. So how they're growing here at Sustainable Harvesters is they're growing aquaponics. And what that means is they're using fish, and they're feeding the fish. The fish produce waste, you know, both pee and poo, and then that those solids are then filtered down, and then some of the solids are taken out, and then the liquids all get pushed in after getting filtered through some of the filter beds to feed the lettuce and the other plants that they're growing, other vegetables are growing, the nutrients. And so this is one of the most sustainable ways for agriculture. You know, I mean, if you were gonna grow at your house, you know, or even a farm, a lot of farms use like cow manure to like add nutrition to their garden, but cow manure may contain E. coli and other things. On the other hand, using the fish waste, right, is a much more safer way, because fish waste does not contain E. coli like cow waste can. And a lot of our systems are designed to use waste products from one industry to grow another. So here it's all self-contained, and that's maybe why they have their name Sustainable Harvesters, because not only are they growing the fish that then they could sell, they're also growing massive amounts of mostly lettuce with some other, you know, select crops mixed in. Now the cool thing about this place here is, you know, you guys see massive amounts of lettuce here. They harvest 7,000 heads of lettuce a week, which is completely insane. I mean, there's just so much lettuce here. I mean, this whole place is basically all lettuce. And they have you know, a handful of different varieties of lettuce that may show you guys in a little bit. But what I want to do next is actually show you guys why this is more sustainable than maybe another kind of system that people get mixed up with, aquaponics and hydroponics. And actually, conveniently enough, they have a hydroponic system over yonder. So let's go over there and let's talk about that a little bit more and how that differs majorly from an aquaponic system like they're growing in here. So the system of farming that I'm sharing with you guys next is known as hydroponics. So whether you do hydroponics, and that's indoor hydroponics or outdoor hydroponics, or even conventional agriculture using synthetic nutrients, all these I kind of classify in the same boat. You know, basically you're growing food through man-made technological innovations with synthetic fertilizers made in a factory. And this is not how nature does it. You know, there's pros to growing in this method, and there's also cons to growing in this method. Me personally, I believe there's a lot more cons to growing in this method than pros. Let's take a look at how this method is growing in this particular setup here. So number one, they have basically a big tank. This tank houses the water plus the water-soluble nutrient solution, right? And then it's distributed through these pipes into this controller box that then basically floods and drains all these pots here. Now, yeah, these crops, they look like they're growing pretty good over here, right? I'm not gonna say that they don't, but the thing is, these crops are being fed only a certain spectrum of nutrients that are in the water-soluble nutrients, you know, such as the bloom, the general hydroponics, floral, micro, floral bloom, and flora grow, as well as some of the other different products they have down here in these big jugs. And basically what happens is, you know, man has figured out what they think plant needs to grow, and they put it in these bottles of stuff and they feed it to the plants, and things grow, whether it's hydroponics or whether that's synthetic, you know, chemical fertilizers that you buy in big bags that are pelletized, right? These nutrients don't care what's in or what's holding the roots for the plant. So for example, in this system, we got these hydroton rocks in a garden system outside of using synthetic chemicals and fertilizers, right? The soil, the sand, in some systems, even sawdust is just holding the roots. And these systems don't care if you got good micro life. They don't care if you got rock dust, because all the water soluble nutrients are in there that go directly and feed the plants directly. Now, the big disadvantage of this system I see is twofold. Number one, you may not be providing a complete spectrum of nutrients to the plant, so then the plant will not grow to its genetic potential. It may get big, but it also may not have a high level of nutrition in there, and it may look good. And unfortunately, in our system of agriculture, things are sold on the how much they weigh, how much you can produce, not the quality of what is being produced. And I think that's a big problem, and I think that really needs to change. So that's one challenge. The other challenge is, like in this little system right here, they got this big 55 gallons of the nutrient solution. After a while, this nutrient solution gets worn out, the ppms get too high, and then they need to drain it off. So they actually got a little hose that they turn on a valve, and then it basically drains down into the sewer system, which then goes into who knows where, right? And a lot of this actually in conventional systems go into a river, gets drained out, and this is a toxic byproduct of both hydroponic growing and regular conventional farming. And this is creating like dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico where things are not living because of these high salt and runoffs from conventional agriculture. And above all else, this, in my opinion, needs to change. And so I'm glad that they have this system here to show, hey, how you could grow hydroponically, right? But then, this is a small system here they show just as an example, but then behind it, there's a more sustainable approach to growing food. And, it's known as the aquaponics. So instead of having this full of, chemical nutrient solutions, right? They got fish inside that they're feeding the fish. The fish are pooping and peeing, making nutrients for the plants. The fish pee and poop basically feed the plants. And this is a cycle that's much more sustainable, that doesn't create massive amounts of high salt waste runoffs or waste that then need to go down the drain. So that's what I'm really here to show you guys today, how they do this on a massive scale and how they have been doing it successfully now for almost 3 years, and how they've gone through their trials and tribulations of learning how to do it better and best. And yeah, let's just go over and show you guys the driving force of this whole system here. It's actually not just the fish, but it's also the fish food. So let's go ahead and take a look at the fish. So now I want to share with you guys how an aquaponic system works, and we'll go ahead and give you the general overview here on how it works, and then we're going to go ahead and dive into the more of the specifics on how it's working here for them at Sustainable Harvesters. So as you guys can see behind me, there's some big, huge tanks, right? One, two, three or two big tanks, a smaller tank, it's off to the side. These tanks have fish. They have tilapia fish in there, and a special kind of tilapia fish actually, that I haven't heard anybody doing this before, which seems really smart to me. And basically the fish, they feed the fish produce the waste goes into the tanks on the far side, not the ones with the clear windows, and that basically helps filter out some of the solid waste. And then after that happens, then the solid waste stays in the tanks, and then the liquid waste kind of goes into the beds up top. They have a few plants planted in there. Those are just generally to help suck up and clean some of the solid waste, including they have worms in those. And then it basically funnels down into the bottom over there. You guys could maybe see that. And then that water then gets distributed into the bed right beside me here to grow the lettuce. And they have lots of lettuce, and they basically use a conveyor system to float the lettuce from one end of the greenhouse to the other. From one end of the greenhouse to the other, it takes about 4 weeks. And when the lettuce goes in at the other side of the greenhouse, the lettuce at that point is 2 weeks old, because they start all their own lettuce from seeds in a coconut coir polymer mix that I'll show you guys in a little bit. And then it floats down, and then it grows, and then finally when they're at the end, they're harvesting tons of lettuce. So basically I think it's like they have 4 quarters of this whole section, of this whole grow area gets harvested at one time. So a quarter of this gets harvested, and then the next quarter moves down, the next quarter moves down, and so this happens every 4 weeks, right? So yeah, they're growing a lot of lettuce here that they distribute to local chefs, to local farmers markets, and people in the local area, as well as to local supermarkets where they sell their lettuces. All right, Let's go ahead and go up the little stairway and show you guys just, you know, some of the fish here. They have a whole nother section of fish. And I mean, the system is duplicated on two sides. I'm gonna go ahead and show you this side, a little bit more quiet over here. And yeah, it's a little bit easier to kind of wrap your head around it because I like the way it's set up a little bit easier to look at. All right, so next I want to share with you guys one of the main driving forces of this system. It's the fish, silly. Inside here, what you're looking at, I don't know if you guys can see that on the HD camera today. It's like little baby tilapias, right? And they're small. They're quite small, actually. They look like the size of, like, if you go down to like your local pet store and buy some feeder goldfish, they're really that small. They're quite small, and there's a lot of them in here, and they're just swimming around. I really like how they set up the tanks here with cutouts, and they put clear plexi on there, so that you know, people that come for tours could actually see what's happening on the inside. And you know, this whole farm was designed with giving tours in mind, aside from just actually harvesting lots of produce. And so I really like that they really have a big educational component for the local, you know, people traveling in the area, the local people in the area, the public, but more importantly, the schools, to teach the kids about where food comes from and how fish could be used to grow all this amazing food here. So these are the baby tilapia that they got in, and if you guys look behind me, like some of the bigger tanks, they have a, you know, clear plexi on them. You guys probably can't see, but they got a lot bigger tilapia in there. Now the secret about these tilapia that I haven't heard at any other aquaponics farm that I've been to is that they only get the male fish. That's right, man. They discriminate. They only want male fish. Why? Because they poop more and they're stronger and hardier and they grow faster than the females, right? Yeah, males all the way. So, but yeah, that's really cool. And plus, the thing is, males, we don't reproduce, right? And so what this does for them, because they grow faster, you know, grow bigger, they poop more, this is good for them, good for business, because the poop is what feeds the produce that they're growing, right? And then they grow faster, so they're able to sell the tilapia fish, you know, more sooner rather than later. And as well as the other thing is that they don't make offspring. And this could really mess up your aquaponics system. You got all these females, they're making babies, and now they got all these babies to feed, and now basically you got to do more calculations to figure what you need to put in, what you need to add, subtract, you know, to make your pH right, to put iron and all this kind of stuff in your water to balance everything out. And the amazing thing that I learned about here is what they're telling me is that they use very little, if anything, to balance their system to grow all this lettuce. They're not adding a lot of supplementary things to keep their water balanced, you know, which is amazing to me, because most aquaponic places I've visited, they got to add all kinds of extra stuff to keep their water balanced and keep it all pH adjusted and all this stuff. But just because their system is so large, they're telling me, and it's been dialed in for several years, their system is auto-correcting and auto-adjusting. And they'll make, you know, small minor adjustments, but they don't have to do any major adjustments. Of course, when they first started, they had to do more adjustments and pay more attention to this, but because they've calculated how many fish they got, how much food they feed them precisely, all these kind of things, you know, they got it dialed in so they don't have to add too many extra things. So that to me is actually quite impressive, because most aquaponics places I visited, they have to add a lot of other inputs besides just the food. So anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at the food they're feeding the fish here, which is the primary input to grow the food here. All right, so now I want to share with you guys the food they feed the fish, which is the primary input they're using. I mean, I came over by the fish. I don't know if you guys can see the top of the fish though, but they see me over here and they think they're gonna get fed, so they're like splashing all around, but I'm not here to feed them because I don't want to upset their program. But basically they have these garbage cans, and if we open this up, we got all this fish food in here, and it looks like they got 3 different kinds of fish food. You know, some for the little fish, which get a different food than some of the bigger fish, like the fish for the smaller fish maybe has more protein and whatnot. But this is what the fish food looks like. It kind of looks like and smells like to me like dog kibble. And actually that probably wouldn't be too far off, you know. They're using actually Purina fish food here, which is also quite interesting to me. You know, I hope that one day there's going to be a company that comes up with specific aquaponic fish food, you know, that's going to be, you know, really non-GMO and have all the essential nutrients that the fish needs, but also think more about, you know, what the plants need after it gets run through the fish. So yeah, that's the food they use here. And even just using the Purina fish food, they're getting some amazing results growing all their food. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about real quick as I'm still next to the fish here is that, you know, in the aquaponics system, you're growing two things mainly. You're growing fish and you're growing the vegetables. And, you know, some people really like the fish aspect, some people really like the vegetable aspect, but here's the thing. I talked to one of the owners here, and basically the vegetables produce more money faster than the fish. So don't get into aquaponics thinking that you're gonna make $1 million doing fish. Fish is kind of just there to, you know, help bring some extra funds in, but mainly you're after the fish poop and pee. That's your main resource. And so you don't want to sell too many of your fish, although they can create some additional revenue for you. I mean, the other reason is this simply, right? It takes as short as 6 weeks from seed to the time the lettuce is ready to be harvested. And this is a continual system that they keep pumping out 7,000 heads of lettuce a week, which is amazing. You know, wholesale, depending on the place it's getting it, $1.50, $2, retail, $3 to $4. You know, do the math. That's a lot of money you guys could make if you have the market for it like they've created here. The fish, on the other hand, yeah, they sell for more dollars per pound than the lettuce, but the thing is they take months to get full maturity until they can be sold. And so the lettuce and the vegetables much more profitable for them, because the fish, kind of like animals on a farm in my opinion, are the workers, right? You're running things through them like, you know, your food waste on the farm, your compost things that you wouldn't eat, you're feeding that to your chickens, you're getting their poop that then you could actually then compost and then put back in and return to your system to grow more food, you know. And I think that's a much more valuable use of the animals, you know, for the services they can be provided instead of just, you know, harvesting them. And that's my personal thoughts. So anyways, once they feed the fish eat the food. I like that these tanks here actually have funnels at the bottom. We can't see that because it's quite dark in there, but basically they're conical at the bottom. So all the waste goes into a tube that funnels into this tube that then goes to these filtration devices that they have in line. That's just a mechanical device to filter out some of the solid waste, and they work actually quite well. So let's go ahead and take a look at them next. So after the poop and pee water gets funneled down from one of the fish tanks, it then goes up this pipe and then goes into this big tank right here that basically, if you look at it, has 3 different parts on the inside. There's basically just pieces of plastic that run down like almost to the bottom, and compartmentalize this into 3 sections. The water goes into the first section and then, you know, is slowed down, and all the debris kind of stay up to the top. The water then kind of moves into the second section, which then the water is cleaner, and by the time the water moves into the third section, it's actually pretty clean. And so this filters out all the big particulate. This is one of the easiest filtration systems I've seen in an aquaponics setup. A lot of people use these different kind of sponge-like poly, you know, material things to filter the water out, but this works amazingly, and it's amazingly simple. So I really like that here, Sustainable Harvesters. They've tried a lot of different things, and this is what they're finally using, you know, to clean the water. And it's actually quite simple and amazing. So after the water goes through this system, then it basically goes through their, what most people would call a gravel filter system, but they're not using the gravel here, they're using the hydroton balls. So let's go over and take a look at that system next and share with you guys how they further filter the water before it goes to grow their lettuce. So once the water goes out of that first filter that I just showed you guys, then it goes down into this big pipe and then comes out right here. They have a ball valve on it to kind of cut the flow rate down. And then it comes out into this big bed here of hydroton balls. And many aquaponic systems, they may be using some kind of gravel, but here they're using the hydroton balls. And in this system, you could grow more food. So in the summertime, they had things like tomatoes and bell peppers and, you know, summer crops. But now they just pulled all those, so they just replanted things like the kale over here that are still pretty small. And then over behind me here, they got some mustard greens that are actually kind of taste like wasabi. I had a little bit, they're quite spicy. Now, the goal of the plants here are not to grow and sell them like the lettuces. You know, that's the secondary function is, yeah, if they got a surplus, you know, they'll eat it and sell some of the extra stuff. But the primary function of these guys is to help clean the water coming out and pull more nutrients out of it. In addition, they got some free helpers or free workers that are working here in the hydroton. Let me see if I could find some for you. All right, here, one of the free workers that they have inside the hydroton. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's kind of crawling around right there. But these are earthworms. So earthworms is what would, you know, help feed your garden nutrients. And I encourage everybody to have earthworms in their garden. But they're also using the earthworms, you know, in their aquaponics system to their advantage. The earthworms are in there digesting some of the nutrients that came out of the fish tanks, and they're helping, you know, to get this matter cleaner. Also, the earthworms, they're eating nutrients, but they're also pooping out beneficial nutrients. They're gonna help grow their lettuce. Now, aside from the earthworms in this hydroton bed, what they're also cultivating are beneficial microbes. So bacteria and fungi, all these different creatures that work in symbiosis with nature to help break down all the nutrients in the fish poop and pee to turn this into plant available nutrients. And I mean, those are the invisible creatures that really drive an aquaponic system. And without the beneficial microbes, an aquaponic system will simply not work, right? It's just kind of like, you know, we need to break down the manure before you put it in your garden, and that's why we use the bacteria to do that. They make the nutrients available to the plants, and that's what the bacteria that you guys aren't seeing, that I can't just pull up and show you like I can with the worms. It's super important, right? And I think that's why, one of the reasons why the system here is working so well is because they've established a really good microbiome here in their aquaponic system that basically, you know, microbes are nature's self-balancers, right? If there's certain kinds of nutrients that are too high, then the microbes that eat those nutrients are gonna eat those nutrients and then bring that back down to level. And if the thing is, you know, and so like all these things are self-balancing if we set up systems properly. So I mean, mainly they're here to just observe. They're here to harvest and feed the fish, and they let nature, you know, work out a lot of the challenges that they're having here. And I think that's really cool. And like, you know, so because like in a hydro system, you know, you really got to pay attention with your pH up, pH down, your ppms and all this stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, they monitor some stuff here, but they try to just, you know, balance things out more naturally than to get involved. And I think that's really quite admirable. So once the water gets filtered to this system, it then filters down into the bottom, which then is when it feeds and it goes into all the lettuce beds to feed the lettuce. So now I want to share with you guys the 4 different weeks primarily that it goes, and the 4 different stages of lettuce as they fill these beds up with, and how that process goes on how they grow lettuce here in you know, 4 weeks from the time they put it into the aquaponic system, and then the 2 weeks that they have them sprouting in you know, also aquaponics water that'll add fertility to the little baby starts. Now I want to show you guys how the lettuce is grown in their system. And once again, this is just like really cool to see this much lettuce growing. Basically, they get these little flats here that come with plugs pre-made in them. It's like 99% coconut coir and 1% polymer, so they stick together. And they basically just put lettuce seeds in there. So they get their lettuce seeds from Johnny Select Seeds. They're you could buy them yourself as a home gardener, but a lot of commercial farms use them because they have some good varieties of commercial seed. And they grow varieties of green and red lettuces, many different kinds actually, maybe a handful. And what they do is they basically put the seeds in the little plugs here. They write a little tag with when they're started. This happens to be green oak, started 2 days ago. And already these guys are starting to sprout and germinate. They basically hand water these guys with a watering can right here. And they water them you know, for a week or so to get them going. So like the ones in the front here that you guys are seeing are popping up, you know, these guys, they're about a week old, and they're getting pretty big. This one actually is growing better than some of the other varieties. It's actually known as the Rex. And once it grows for about a week, then it goes on to the next stage where they're actually then, you know, putting it under lights, and now they're gonna start feeding it, you know, the clean water from the aquaponics system after it's been through, you know, all the rows of lettuce. The water's, the regular lettuce has pulled out a lot of the nutrients, and it goes into their next system that I'll share with you guys next. So the next step in the system, after they germinate the seeds, they get going for a little bit, maybe like a week. The next week, they're then in a system like this. They basically have some fluorescent, full spectrum lights made for growing plants, and then basically they're in these trays here that they're flooding with some of the water from the aquaponics system. So this is now when the lettuce roots get to start feeling some of the nutrients from the fish, and a more lightened, or a, you know, or a light nutrient load on there. It's not heavy nutrients like in some of the lettuce beds that I'll show you guys in a second. And that basically grows to grow all these guys. At about 2 weeks, they start harvesting from this section, and this is a big conveyor belt system, right? After about a week, that goes into this system here, and they move them down. And then about 2 weeks, then they take these guys when they're ready, and then they float them in rafts in their main system there. So yeah, they got, let's see, Muir, Salanova, Muir, Rex, Red Butter, all different kinds of lettuces ready to go into the next part. You know, I really like this conveyor system they have, and this is a system that I encourage you guys to have. You guys are probably watching this now when you can't have a summer garden anymore outside, but I want you guys to get a setup, whether it's like this, that's auto watering, and I really want some of these racks for inside my house really bad. They're really cool. But basically, if you had just a one level like this, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 trays of, in this case, lettuce starts. But what's more valuable to a home gardener would be something like microgreens. You could have one head on a much smaller scale than they're doing with their lettuce. You could have, like, you know, seeds that you just started on this side, and seeds that are ready to be harvested, or plants that are ready to be harvested on that side, and start a new tray every day and pick off that whole tray and have a tray done every day. So you could be harvesting like one tray a day as you move these, take that one off and add a new one that's emptied down. So yeah, really good system that they're doing here. I mean, this is a production system. I mean, they are growing commercially. Let's go ahead and head down to the other end of the greenhouse and show you guys how this lettuce, you know, goes from this and then into their rafts that then they float down all the way until you know, 6 weeks at the end when it's harvested. So now we're at the other end of the greenhouse, and what you guys are looking at here is simply a bed of nails. Now, they don't do no magic tricks where they're lying on the bed of nails, and, like, you know, these nails are actually the head side up, not the, you know, the sharp side up. Why they have this, and they have it specifically at certain intervals and spacing, they basically take one of their flats, and they just got done basically using most of this stuff. They put this flat right here on the bed of nails and push down, and the nails actually pop up each of the plants, so that then they could actually take each plug and then put it into one of the styrofoam floats that they float all the lettuce in. That's going to be in the float system for the next 4 weeks. You know, every week it gets moved down a little bit until the 4th week is when it's ready to be harvested. They just harvested this week's, so the ones that are down at the end that I'll be ending up showing you guys are not quite ready, because they're going to be ready for next week. So let me go ahead and show you guys this massive operation here and all the lettuce they're growing. So as you guys can see now, we're at the other end of the greenhouse here. The end with the fish are all down there, and they basically, after they filter the water, they send the water down to this side, and then it bubbles up. And the cool thing about this system here is that they've elevated the fish off the ground. I didn't mention that earlier. It's several feet off the ground, so you got to actually climb up a few stairs to get up there. So by doing this, they've raised the height of the fish, and now they also have raised the height of the water. So now they can use gravity in their favor to basically use gravity to make the water go to where they need it. So they only have like one pump that drives this whole side here to get the water to where it needs to go. Otherwise, they're using gravity. And in the beds here, they have the pipes at different levels throughout the different beds to get the water to the next bed. definitely really cool. So the next step is those little plugs go into these guys, which are styrofoam boards. These are made by Beaver Plastics up in Canada, and basically they stick the plugs in here, and as you guys can see on the bottom here, the roots are just starting to stick out the bottom here, and then they go into the water that's right here. Now they haven't like filtered out or cleaned their tanks, and probably trying to keep too clean is probably not a good thing because it could really wreck your microbial balance in there. And so they pride themselves on that. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not the cleanest water, it's pretty clean, but the water in there has the nutrients that the plants need, and the plants suck out all the nutrients to help clean the water. So these guys just basically float on here, and at the end, when they harvest one whole raft, they just move these on down like a conveyor belt. And so every week they add a new one, and every week they take off you know, 1 or 2 or whatever, as many as they're harvesting. And so yeah, this looks really great here. And yeah, these ones were just planted now. They're about 2 weeks old, and basically you could think of this whole line that you guys could see behind me. You could kind of see where they start to like get a little bit bigger, right? That's last week's. And so this is sectioned off into 4 different sections, right? The first section is this week's, the next section is the week before that, the next section is 2 weeks before that, and the last section is 3 weeks before that, ready to be harvested, you know, next week, because I did say they just you know, harvested for today. So yeah, that's pretty easy. Now, you know, some of the more intricate things that are important to this system will go down, and I'll show you guys you know, some of the more fine points on how to really dial up and increase the production of your system is, yeah, we'll go next door. So now we're at an area where the lettuce is maybe going to be harvested within the next couple weeks here. So they're a lot bigger, they're getting bigger here. And one of the secrets they do that's very important to growing good lettuce, whether you're growing it in aquaponics like this or even at your home garden. Let's go ahead and lift this tray up here. Look at these massive roots they got down underneath here, man. These are getting quite long. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's way at the back. You guys probably can't see that, but basically they got air bubblers every so many feet here to actually oxygenate the water. This does 2 things. You know, it helps the roots to grow because the roots need some oxygen, but also more importantly, that bacteria and the microbes, they also need oxygen to thrive. And so they're providing the oxygen to do that. And so they're getting some really good growth. Now, you know, that's in the aquaponics setup they're doing here. Let me go ahead and gently set this down here. But even for you guys that are home gardeners, really important to oxygenate your root zone, right? By a few ways. Number 1, by not tilling. And you know, tilling could cause wreak havoc with the microbes in there. And although you're adding oxygen by tilling, you're destroying too many of the microbes. You know, a really great way to oxygenate is to use, like I use the AquaJet irrigation system that actually oxygenates the root zone every time before it comes on. Another way that's really good to oxygenate is have a good soil blend, right? A good fluffy soil blend, you know, rich in microbes, you know, and worms are going to help oxygenate your soil as well. You know, another way that's really good to oxygenate your soil is to not step on your soil, not to step on your raised beds. Surely nobody's stepping on these floats because you're going to, you know, sink down. But even on my raised beds, I don't like to step on them. You know, I was stepping on it because I had to the other day, and actually when I stepped on my raised beds, like my foot sunk in and left a footprint. And that's not a good thing because now I'm compacting my soil, taking away some of that important, you know, root space and oxygen, you know, and the spaces in the soil for my plants. So yeah, it looks like they're doing an amazing job here growing lots of different lettuces. So after about 6 weeks, the lettuce moves their way down on this float system. We could kind of float this guy down a little bit. Oh, we can't because there's a pipe that's in the way, but basically they come to this end and then they're ready to get taken out and harvested. At this point, the roots are really long and the lettuce is actually quite big and at a, you know, saleable size. Now, over on this side where the water has been moved down over to this side and gone through a few beds, because this is a red bed, the water, if I look into it, it's actually pretty clean. It's cleaner than some swimming pools that I swam at in hotels, and that's kind of scary. But there, I mean, there's some particulate and debris in the bottom, but the water is quite clear. It's quite impressive. Now, I do want to let you guys know something I learned about this trip actually, And so once the water comes out through their system, it actually goes into some of the green beds first. I don't know if you guys can see the green beds on either side of this red bed here. And you know, they found out that the green beds, the lettuces with the green, require a little bit more nutrients than the lettuces with the reds, or with the red color lettuces. So they run the water through the green beds first, and then after it runs through the green bed, then it runs through the red bed. And then after this, then it basically funnels into the system that I showed you that's in front of me that you guys can't see, where they have all the little plant starts where the water's pretty much clean. And so that's kind of cool. But yeah, definitely want to, I definitely had a good time showing you guys the whole process here. I mean, it is pretty simple, and that's the whole thing. You know, one of my favorite TV shows on TV, I don't watch a whole lot of TV, but I like the show on CNBC called The Prophet. And if you watch that show, basically the prophet comes in and helps like entrepreneurs to basically make their business more profitable. And one of the ways he does this is by basically creating systems and creating, you know, the process and creating a better process, and even making a new process if their old processes wasn't dialed in right. And I really like Sustainable Harvesters here because they've really dialed in their process to really make it really efficient, so they could produce the most amount of lettuce for their, you know, farming side, but also really dial in the education and things that they teach and give farm tours to dial that in as well, because that is also additional revenue for their business. And most of their revenue comes from the sale of the produce they produce, and you know, a part of it, lesser percentage, comes in from, you know, the classes and the teachings that they do to try to get this information out to others and how to be more sustainable. The next thing I want to do is actually walk into their cooler, because I'm actually quite hot today. But I want to show you guys, you know, some things that even take more expense than the inputs of just simply the fish food. It's the electricity costs. We are here in a greenhouse. We're here in Houston. I mean, we're basically in fall now, but it's still 90 degrees outside. So the main, you know, cost for this greenhouse is the heating in the winter time and some of the cooling systems in the summer. So I want to share with you guys how they deal with that here, because without these systems, this place would totally be a mess and a wreck. So heating and cooling is one of the biggest challenges they have here in Houston, mostly in the summer. You know, we're going to be quite hot and humid outside, and this greenhouse basically just collects the heat, and it gets quite warm in here. So the cooling is probably a little more important than the heating in the winter time, and how they cool is not with air conditioning. That's actually quite inefficient and actually can get quite expensive. They basically have a huge swamp cooler against one whole side of their greenhouse. You guys can see behind me. Basically, they drip water down the little perforated, I think, you know, strips, and then they basically pull the warm air through it, which cools the warm air. Maybe you get about a 10-degree temperature drop. They pull the air through and evacuate it out the other side to cool things off. You know, they were using some shade cloth in the summer, but they found that didn't work as well as just cooling it down. And so year round, you know, they can provide lettuce to the local community. And this is very important because this gives them a competitive advantage that, you know, people growing outside here in Houston, they ain't gonna be growing some lettuce outside in the summer. They're gonna be growing some more, you know, tropical summer greens, such as the Egyptian spinach, such as the Malabar spinach, and such as the katuk and these kind of things. But unfortunately, most Americans don't know these tropical edible greens that I think are better than lettuce and more nutritious than lettuce. Most Americans know their lettuce, and they want local lettuce because they're getting, you know, put into this food system, and they're becoming aware of the problems with synthetically grown, you know, lettuce grown conventionally with synthetic fertilizers and chemicals and all these things. So I think that's really great that they're able to do that here. In addition, of course, the winter can get quite cold, and although the greenhouse is open to collect some of the solar rays and warms up in here, in addition, they have some heating units up on the top that they probably got one too many. They could probably just have one heating unit to heat this greenhouse up in the winter so that they can keep their production up. Now, of course, in the winter time when it gets a bit cooler, you know, the bacterial activity and the lettuce and the fish, they all move a little bit slower. So, you know, their production goes down a little bit in the winter, but it's quite all right. So yeah, now, aside from like opening and closing the different vents and turning on different fans, you know, they had actually a Kickstarter campaign, which is a really great way to help fund your farming project, as long as you give some good, you know, things to the people that are gonna fund you. That's what they did, and they got a computerized system that opens and closes the vents and turns this system on and shuts it off. And I mean, this is what I really think is needed. This allows them to be more free and go on vacation and do things and not have to worry about this place each and every day. So especially as you guys get bigger, I want you guys to, once again, create a process, create a system that automates, that dials it in so that you guys don't have to show up to work. So another part of their system to keep this place cool, of course, are the fans. You know, they have lots of fans that I haven't seen turn off since I've been here, and that's probably a really big component. Once again, they're pulling air from the one side of the greenhouse through the swamp cooler, pulling that cool air through, and as it goes through the greenhouse, it's warming up, and then they evacuate it. This also creates a current to pull air through from the other side. And what you guys didn't see on the other side is they have these flaps that can open and close all automatically so that they can maintain a precise temperature in here so that their fish and their lettuce and their plants and vegetables can thrive. So the environmental control system, or trying to control Mother Nature, is probably their biggest expense, you know, with all the different heaters, the coolers, the fans running all the time. You know, just some of the pumps they've used are pretty efficient pumps, and it doesn't cost them a lot of money, but the environmental control system is the most expense that they have in the month, right? And so maybe placing your farm in a place that, you know, has more weather conducive to the crop you're growing would be a lot easier, or maybe growing some crops they're going to do well in the heat and then switch over to a winter crop. The problem is, you know, they want to have lettuce year round because people want lettuce year round, right? So they have a system here, it's known as the Link4, link4corp.com, and that controls basically all the different fans, thermostats, and everything, kicks things on when it needs it, shuts them off when it doesn't, closes vents, opens vents, does everything, and pretty soon they're going to link this up so it actually could control their, you know, the shade cloth and opening different things and all this kind of stuff. In addition, of course, they got a Generac, you know, a generator, you know, that runs on propane. So this is very important too, because if some of the pumps go out on the fish, or, you know, and the weather's wrong, they could lose their investment in their entire farm. So I always want to encourage you guys, once you get up and established, right, have some backup systems to back you up, right? I mean, all my systems for my garden, for watering anyways, are all on automatic control timers that I could control from my iPhone if I need to, no matter where I am. You know, the next step is I want to start measuring soil moisture in different beds and be able to see that on my iPhone, which I'm still working on. And then I could actually water remotely and do all this stuff if I'm traveling. So, you know, they're working on systems to get that involved here and get that up and running as well. I think the next thing I want to do is actually head into the walk-in cooler and share with you guys some of the lettuce they just harvested today. So now I'm going to head in the walk-in. In the walk-in, they basically got very little left. They go through their produce, they harvested it, get it in the walk-in, then they get it back out really fast. But even if they didn't get it out that fast, the cool thing is this lettuce, unlike most lettuces you might buy in the store, still have their roots and they're still living. This means they'll last longer. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull out some lettuce and show you guys and share with you guys some tips on picking lettuce and eating lettuce you may get here or out of your garden. So here's some of the lettuce that was harvested today out of their system, and check this out. What they do to increase the shelf life of the lettuce are a few things. Number one, once the lettuce comes out of the system, they pluck off some of the outer leaves that are kind of maybe getting old, decayed. So they pluck that off. So all the old decay leaves now are gone and you got clean, fresh leaves. Generally, I would, you know, pull those leaves off myself anyways and then compost them, and I'll only eat the inside leaves. So that's one way they keep their lettuce fresher longer. Now this lettuce will probably, at least if it was in a cooler or fridge, easily for a week. It's not really even going to change. This could stay fresh for up to, you know, a couple weeks, no problem, 3 weeks, because it still has the roots. As long as the roots have a small level of moisture in there, and they leave the roots on, they basically wrap the roots up around in a ball, and this lettuce is still living and breathing as it's sitting here in my hand. You know, I mean, I could potentially even take this home and plant it in my garden. Not that I would recommend doing that. I'd like to only do that if it was much smaller, not when it's you know, this mature. So yeah, that's definitely really cool that they're doing that here. So that means that people are getting this lettuce, they're getting a higher quality lettuce than one that's been already, you know, grown in California, cut off at the stem, no longer has its roots, and it starts to degrade and go down. The nutrition starts to go down as time goes on, whereas this lettuce is staying the same nutrition, and if exposed to light is actually may increase with nutrition because it still is going to be photosynthesizing and creating more nutrients. Now if you want even a higher quality, more nutritious lettuce than one that has the roots on it, you know, that's green, you want to go ahead and get one of the red lettuces. The red lettuces, because of its color, has more of the phytochemicals and phytonutrients and antioxidants in there. So I really like some of the more deep, dark red color lettuces for me to grow personally. And I tend to favor growing the deep red, rich color lettuces, you know, than the standard green lettuces myself. The flavor's about the same. You can't really detect the difference in flavor, but it's much more nutritious and is more anti-aging and probably more anti-disease than the standard greens. So yeah, lettuces here looks really great. I guess besides just the lettuce they produce, they also produce something else, the fish that I'm not going to get to show you. They did harvest them and take some out today. But you know, as you guys can see behind me, you know, what they do produce besides the lettuce is they produce one waste product that must be ejected from their garden. Much like in the hydroponic system, they have a, you know, the water that they got to flush out and literally run down the drain. The water that they run out here when they're cleaning their filtration tanks, maybe like once a week, is basically poop and pee water from the fish, which contains high levels of nutrients. So instead of just throwing those down the drain, actually they run them into garden beds outside. So I want to share with you guys these garden beds and show you guys how they use the pee and poo water to actually further enrich their outside compost grown produce. So about once a week they drain those the first set of filters that had those little like pieces of plastic down there to make it into 3 compartments so that they could clean them out so that it doesn't get too much bad bacteria in there, and that water doesn't go down the drain like a hydroponics water would, right? Instead it goes to what you're looking at behind me. It's their outside raised bed gardens, and it's the poop and pee water, you know, in the filters go out to basically add nutrition to the soil in their outside garden to grow more crops, whether that's, you know, tomatoes and peppers in the summertime, or maybe some cole crops, kale and collard greens in the wintertime. Right now they just actually pulled out their summer crop stuff and they're waiting to get their winter crops back planted in there. But yeah, this amazing use or reuse of, you know, the poop and pee water when they're doing maintenance on their system. And so like basically nothing is wasted here, right? This is a sustainable harvesters, that's the name of their farm, and it's more sustainable than standard conventional agriculture and even hydroponics that create a waste product that must be disposed of. I guess the as much as you guys have seen how this is done on a big scale farming setup to produce 7,000 heads of lettuce a week, this can also be done on a much smaller scale to grow food for you and your family at home. So what I'd like to do next is actually head back into the greenhouse and show you guys the smaller family or home version of their large aquaponics system that they've created for people that live at you know, at their home, that want to grow food aquaponically, you know, and be successful at it. Of course, you could try to build your own system and piece together this and that, but you know, they have the experience here to know how to make a system work on a big scale, so shrinking that down into a smaller scale was no problem for them. So let's head back in the greenhouse and show you guys their home system. So what we're looking at now is their home system that you guys could buy and use at your own home to grow food successfully aquaponically, just like they're doing in their big system. So this is a system custom designed by them to include a little fish tank with the fish, and then next we go over to the filtration medium that I showed you guys that they get emptied out into their garden there. That's the next stage, a smaller version. And then the next step is their gravel filter bed, or the hydroton bed that they grow more standard conventional produce in, maybe like tomatoes and peppers. They got some mustard greens and kale in there. You could grow carrots in there. You could grow a lot of different things. And of course, at the end, they have basically the raft system with 3 different rafts with lots of lettuce in there. And if you just grew solely lettuce, you'll have more lettuce than you guys or a family could eat, unless you eat lots of lettuce. But you could also grow other things besides lettuce, so maybe some herbs and some other kinds of leafy greens for you and your family. Next, I want to actually go over to the lettuce bed, show you guys more about the lettuce that's growing in that bed there, their float bed, and talk to you about some of the nutrients they've added in this little test system that they offer, but also do testing with so that they can improve their larger system, actually on the other side of me. So this is the final stage of the home system. It allows you to grow 108 different heads of lettuce or other plants such as herbs and other leafy greens. Definitely produces a lot of lettuce. And in this system here, they get to experiment, right? They don't want to be experimenting on their big systems there, because they're a farm, they're a business. They need to be reliably producing food consistently without interruption. So they can't just start, playing with variables that they don't know what's going to happen. But they can do that with this system, because this system is just kind of for demonstration to show people what they could do at home. And I mean, there's a guy that came in recently that bought one of these systems. He doesn't even have a house, he has an apartment. He put this on his balcony to grow lots of food. I think that's simply amazing. And so just lifting this up, we can look inside here and look at these roots. These roots are actually quite massive inside here, actually bigger than the roots in their regular system. And I mean, one of the reasons for that is because one of the things they've added to this system as an experiment that they didn't add to their other system, and it's known as the rock dust or azomite. So basically, the farm manager here basically put in about 2 cups of the azomite or the rock dust, just mixed it in the water here in this bed, which then the pumps, circulated throughout the system. It didn't hurt the fish, and he said that, because of the azomite, it greened up faster and they grew faster because of it. Now, I want to encourage you guys to use azomite or a good quality rock dust, in your standard gardening, as well as your hydroponic and even aquaponic gardening, because one of the big challenges I see with the conventional and even organic agriculture food system is that they're not adding the trace minerals back into the soil to produce higher quality fresh fruits and vegetables that will grow faster, grow bigger, more importantly, be more healthier for the people eating them, also have a longer shelf life, and also, more importantly, be more resistant to pests, bugs, and disease. So really like that they're experimenting here, and hopefully they roll out the azomite or the rock dust in their regular, commercial area to produce a higher quality, faster growing, product for the consumers in the area. So if you're wondering the cost of this system here, at present time, this system is about $2,000. What do I think about $2,000 for a hydroponic system? I think that's kind of expensive. Of course, you can buy your own IBC tote and all this kind of stuff and piece together your own system. But I do like how this is all really professional, and you're really using the same quality of commercial components that they're using here. And this is a lot less work. So if you got more money than time to, tinker around with things, this is definitely a good way to go. But the other thing, a major component of this system that you can't just like physically see, is the expertise and training and hand holding you'll get from the farm here. If you buy the system from them, you get a full day of training and all the help you need to ensure and dial in your system so that it's working for you consistently and producing as well for you as their commercial system here produces for them. So that, I think, is probably an invaluable part of the system that, a lot of DIYers could look at some YouTube videos and figure it out yourself, because, a lot of us don't have the money. But if you got the money and you just don't want to screw around with stuff, yeah, get this system, go for the training. You'll be up and running, producing your own lettuce and other herbs and greens and tomatoes and peppers and carrots in no time. And I guess the final thing I'd like to say is that I've definitely had a fun time here at Sustainable Harvesters. and that they do offer tours. So if you guys like the tour that I gave you guys today, you guys can come out on your own tour, probably even learn more than what I share with you guys in this episode. You'll see actually how they do it. You'll see all the fish. You'll see basically everything. You'll learn more about this system, about the hydro system that they have on the other side of me that I talked about earlier in this episode. And then you'll be able to learn and link up with them to take further classes about hydroponics, buy their system if you want, learn more about how your food is grown here in Houston. I definitely would recommend this place if you live in Houston. It's definitely good to come out, you know, and take one of their tours to kind of learn more. I mean, every place that I visit on my journey and travels around the country and around the world about visiting farms and places that grow food, I always learn at least 1 or 2 or 3 new things that I could apply to my own garden at home. And maybe one of these days I'll even get some kind of aquaponic system to be growing with the fish at my house. I mean, I definitely like it a lot. I still really like, you know, gardening in the soil, because I think it's a lot more easier. You don't have to, like, you know, keep testing the water. You don't have to keep cleaning fish tanks and all this stuff. I just get some good soil, you know, work on building my soil, plant my plants, put on an irrigation timer system. It comes on and I come back and there's food. Of course, aquaponics could work also really well if you want to put some more time into it and playing with water and adjustments and adding things to it. And yeah, you know, no matter what method of growing excites you, whether that's aquaponics, hydroponics, dare I say conventional farming, you know, growing organic, biologic like I teach, you know, I want you guys to get excited about growing, because the fact of the matter is we need to be concerned about this in this day and age and not let other people grow our own food for us, but take these matters into our own hands and start growing our own food for us and our families. And if you want to start a farm, great. I encourage all you guys to start a local farm and feed the community. And one of the last tips I want to leave you guys with today is that the farmers here, they're very smart, right? You know, before they even started this business, before they started building all these greenhouses, right, they did their market research. Very important. You know, I'd hate to have one of you guys start a farm and then, like, you make all this food, but then you have nobody to buy it. So they went around to local chefs. They found out what local chefs wanted to buy, what they needed, and what they would be able to sell year round. And they found that, you know, they wanted to grow lettuce, and chefs wanted lettuce in a good supply of, you know, spray-free, naturally grown lettuce, not grown with conventional agriculture, because lettuce grown in this way is going to taste better than lettuce grown with, you know, standard synthetic chemical agriculture. And so then they found that's what they needed, and they figured, how can we do this? Can we grow outdoors, or can we grow a different way? And then they learned about the aquaponics, and they started a small 30 by 30 greenhouse, which is no longer standing, as a proof of concept to see if they could actually do it. They were successful, and then they expanded this greenhouse into, you know, one section, and they expanded out into another section to grow even more. And they keep expanding and getting better at what they're doing. And I think that's really great, and that's what I want you guys to do. Whether you guys have a farm or a business or just a home gardener, right? Keep expanding and growing more and more in your space to provide more and more food out of your garden for you and your family. If you got extra hay, start, you know, preserving it, dehydrating it, drying it, fermenting it, and even give it to your friends and neighbors so that they can start eating healthier too, and know more about where food comes from and what real food can taste like. So I really had a fun time here at Sustainable Harvesters today. If you guys enjoyed this video, hey, please give a thumbs up. If you guys enjoyed Sustainable Harvesters, live in the Houston area or passing through, be sure to check the link I put down below to sustainableharvesters.com. You can learn about their systems they sell. You can learn about the tours they give. You can learn about the food they grow, where to get it. And if you're in the Houston area, I definitely would recommend checking this place out and getting some of their lettuce, and definitely going on one of their tours. So if you guys enjoyed this episode at Sustainable Harvesters and you want to learn more about them, be sure to visit their website, sustainableharvesters.com, to learn where you could buy their lettuce. You know, if you're a chef, you can learn how to get it direct from them. If you're you know, a regular person, you could come and learn how to go on a tour, learn about the aquaponics like I did today. And if you're wanting to start your own system, you could actually buy one of these systems from them. If you just want to learn more about aquaponics, you could actually also attend one of their many classes. They have a local meetup group as well about aquaponics, so that you guys can learn everything they know, because they're here to share their knowledge to help others create aquaponics businesses, because they truly feel that this is one of the ways to be more sustainable on the planet. And we need more people than just them doing the aquaponics and growing things sustainably. So they're here as teachers to help spread and propagate this knowledge to, you know, students that come on to tours, or to even, you know, farms that want to start their own, you know, aquaponics, and you know, even be a competitor here. Hopefully it's someone with, you know, outside the local area, but even they cannot provide the volume of lettuce and produce required in the local Houston area, as it is one of the biggest metropolitan areas in the United States. So yeah, with that, I want to say I've had a fun time here. If you guys enjoyed this episode on aquaponics and want me to do more episodes here on aquaponics or other places, hey, be sure to give me a thumbs up to let me know. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below to be notified of my new and upcoming episodes I have coming out every 3 to 4 days, so you don't miss out on any of the information that you may be missing in one of my episodes, because you will always learn something new. And if you haven't ever watched me before, be sure to check my past episodes. My past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. I have over 1,200 episodes now on YouTube dedicated to teaching you guys how to grow more sustainably, you know, whether that's hydroponics, aquaponics, or just in the soil, biologic, organic gardening like I do myself. All the videos are online, and I really love bringing and sharing all this content with you and having access to places that most people wouldn't have access to. In any case, with that, my name is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, remember, keep on growing. All right, this is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, and I'm coming at you once again from the 2016 Heirloom Expo taking place here in Santa Rosa, California. They're going to do it